taking a while to get going. It never used to take that long to get going. It's taking a while to get going.
Confidence in the things that I know. I have enough wisdom to see the logic will be shown. I got one chance to show you what I got. I got one chance to show I'm confident or not. Self-evident reason, deductions and conclusions, and the fools are running away. It's not what you say, it's only what you can prove. You better watch your step, you better mind your P's and Q's. You got one chance, show me what you got. You got one chance, show you confident or not. Don't get caught in the matrix of all of these fakers. Society's spinning, and I'm just here living on the ground. Self-evident reason, deductions and conclusions, logically thinking, and the fools are running away. You're flipping over backwards to show me where you think you are. Your model dictates that you never see too far. Shrinking in the distance, you can do fuck all with an angle, and the fools are running away.
And we are live. Welcome everybody. It is Trivium Day, Hump Day, midweek, where we go over the basics of the basics. But this is today. We are going over the proper basics. The whole idea. I mean, we've had so many conversations today. Today, this show will be dedicated to Mike Jones. He brought us a word. I think we'll start off with that, right? This is how today sort of started was. I don't know how Mike Jones was doing something, and as we have here within this Discord server, we are given gifts of mainly words. I think the words that sort of we've been wanting to be able to explain things more precisely, right? And in order for us to do that, you need to find the words that explain this thing. Now, Mike gave us one of those words this morning, and it will be used a lot. Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say we said for a while kind of lost words, or words that have been forgotten words, maybe.
The words that there should be a word for this, and we can't really explain what it is until you have the word. And once you then have the word, it becomes easier to describe the thing it is that you're trying to express.
Right.
And this one is a big one. You can see if I can go back. I'll get it on the screen for you guys. This is Misology. So what we're going to do is hopefully we go over this conversation that we had when somebody gave us this word and what it means. And it is an old word, right? So first off, we'll go over just the word and the definition of it, and what it means. Misology. It says there rare, but I'm not too sure. It's probably never been used, or not used very often. There's not many things about this psychology sort of work and stuff, but it is hatred of argument, reasoning, or discussion. Not necessarily true, as we'll go back to it. The changing of words. It's the hatred of logos, really. So hatred of argument, reasoning, or discussion. It's a noun. And it's used in this way. This is why I like this one. His misology made him an impossible person to talk to. Now, that sounds common. Sounds familiar. I think it hits the nail right on the head. I'll go... let me just... go to this and... I'll get you guys in Discord with it first. And shut the Discord down. Right.
Yeah, while Bev's bringing that up, the root of the word, the etymology of it is miso and logi. Miso being hatred, logi being basically logic.
Yeah, it has that.
Or logos.
Right here on the thing.
Yep.
You see, it says note 1. Right, and note 1 down here is at the bottom in the notes. There's only one note. Sent this to SE, being our Greek speaker. And he says it's still used today. These...
All right.
Mesos is literally its hatred. So the word is derived from ancient Greek, whatever that is. Hatred of argument. So, I mean, even they translate it as hatred of argument from mesos, hatred, and logos, reason. So they've translated logos, reason, with argument. So when they say hatred of argument, it actually literally means hatred of logos, but they're translated argument, logos to reason, and then back to argument again, almost as if it's the same thing. The argument is the discussion, and the discussion is around logos. as we were talking about earlier, these words bring around a discussion that brings more conversation, and through the logic, the argument, the discussion, we learn things, we gain knowledge from each other and from the words that we use. Sometimes you gain inspiration from yourself. You end up saying something that you didn't even know was in you. It's the bringing of conversation through argumentation, but not what most people would consider argument. This is a old school antiquity argument, a development of conversation through a logical reasoning process. It seems like this extra bit of thought that goes into this reasoning process has been lost. The art of thinking and reasoning has gone, right? So it says Misology is defined as the hatred of reasoning, the revulsion or distrust of logical debate, argumentation, or the Socratic method. That's pretty obvious now. On hearing that, it's pretty obvious why there are a lot of people that don't seem to enjoy conversation with us.
All debates should start from Socratic method. So this is point where logic starts in debate. So that's why many debates are ending at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's dialectic, isn't it? There's two people and there is a conversation back and forth. So this is actually saying there is a hatred of that communication process. That can only be for one reason. Because they've got something to hide, and they know that this conversation process, particularly the Socratic method, exposes it. It's that logos and logic allows you to sniff out bullshit, and you find that bullshit within conversation. That's what we've been doing here. We've been aiming to have as many conversations as possible, so you can work through this.
The process of thinking in debate would force opponent, this misologist, to draw conclusion he hate. But the debate should aim for that, to force opponent to draw logical conclusion. So he is not wanting to do that. He hates that conclusion. That's why he is using all tricks to avoid this. Yes, because he is hating this conclusion, this truth.
Yeah. So it says the source of this comes from, the source of the word is Plato's dramatic work, Phaedo, which is presents the final hours and execution of Socrates, ultimately by those who were offended by his philosophical pursuit. I'm reading from Wiki straight away here. Plato's Phaedo tells the story of Phaedo of Elis, recalling the death and final hours of Socrates sometime afterwards to Ethicrates, who had heard tell of Socrates' execution, but has no detailed account and is curious to hear of it. Phaedo being one of those present at Socrates' execution. I think he was invited in by Socrates at the end, but has no detail, but begins and explains that he and others had gathered early to visit Socrates on the day of the execution. There, Simmias and Thebes had begun a discussion with Socrates on the afterlife, and Thebes in particular, had questioned Socrates on his belief that the soul must be immortal. Phaedo recalls that Socrates had just presented an argument to this effect, when both Simmias and Cebes presented excellent objections. Phaedo breaks from his story and says to Socrates, when we heard that what they, Simmias and Cebes, said, we were all depressed. As we told each other afterwards, we had been quite convinced by the previous argument, Socrates' argument, and they seemed to confuse us again and drive us to doubt not only what had already been said, but also what was going to be said, lest we be worthless as critics or the subject itself, the fate of the soul, admitted of no certainty. And Phaedo then tells Socrates that before replying to Simmias and Cebes' argument, Socrates, having no doubt seen the disquiet that their objection had caused amongst all those present, which Phaedo himself evidenced above Ethocrates, breaks from his argumentation to make an important point, that they must not lose heart because of this objection and reject philosophy as a result. Phaedo says that Socrates begins thus. But first, there is a certain experience we must be careful to avoid, that we must not become misologues, as people, is that right? Misologues? And people become misanthropes. Yep. There is no greater evil one can suffer than to hate reasonable discourse. Misology and misanthropy arise in the same way. Misanthropy comes when a man without knowledge or skill has placed great trust in someone and believes him to be altogether truthful, shadow giants, sound and trustworthy. Then, a short time afterwards, he finds him to be wicked and unreliable, and then this happens in another case. When one has frequently had that experience, especially with those whom one believed to be one's closest friends, then in the end, after many blows, one comes to hate all men and to believe that no one is sound in any way at all. This is a shameful state of affairs, and obviously due to an attempt to have human relations without any skill in human affairs. We'll go back to it in a bit. I'll just get through all of this. Plato's Socrates is warning the reader that just as one should not hate his fellow man because they themselves were poor in judging character, they should not hate argumentation and reason, partake in misology, just because they may not be skilled enough to discern the flaws and strengths of an argument. It would be pitiable, Socrates said, when there is a true and reliable argument and one that can be understood, if a man who has dealt with such arguments as appear at one time true and at another time untrue, just as Socrates' argument had appeared to those present, should not blame himself or his own lack of skill, but because of his distress, in the end gladly shift the blame away from himself to the arguments and spend the rest of his life hating and reviling reasonable discussion and be so deprived of truth and knowledge of reality. This, then, is the first thing we should guard against, Socrates said. We should not allow our minds to the conviction that argumentation has nothing sound about it, but rather we should believe that it is we who are not yet sound, and that we must take courage and be eager to attain soundness. Plato.
That's awesome.
It is.
This is just one thing real quick. This is why I said to Kevin before the show, the misology is a byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Socrates said it better than anybody, that when you don't have the skill or the knowledge of something, but you just totally accept information that's handed to you, and that's your only base, then anybody that brings sound logic and reasoning to say that that's wrong, they're gonna hate it. The misology is gonna just take over.
Yeah.
That's why I like the epahi and the ataraxia is so important too, because Aristotle said the sign of an educated person is to be able to entertain a thought or an idea without accepting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, finish up, Buster. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, that was it. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that the other thing to keep in mind here is, remember, this is all translated, right? So it's important to remember what Bev said, that whenever we read this stuff and we go back to try to understand these lost words or forgotten words, and it's so great that we have SE, who's a Greek speaker and can help us with some of this stuff, especially if it's in Greek. But even that, right, can get manipulated from ancient Greek to modern Greek. But any place where in this entire thread that Bev just read, where it talks about argumentation or reasoning, that is logos. The Greek word they would have used there is logos. Keep that in mind, because we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of this is this process, the argumentation, particularly logos or logic. It depends how you want to form it, right? They say argumentation. Well, yes, an argumentation should be logic. It should be a syllogism. It should be a antecedent consequent relationship, but with a reasoning process that goes on. That entire thing is logic, and one should follow from the other, as should the conclusion, and they should be separate things entirely, and it should be able to be proved within that system. Now, the argumentation about it is the discussion, which is what Socrates is saying, is that you shouldn't just hate it. You should be able to have the discussion around it. And that entire discussion is, if you don't quite understand it, then you should be able to have the discussion with people and be able to have that discourse, but pleasant discourse, in order for you to gain knowledge. If you shut it down, which is what this misology is, then the revulsion or distrust of logical debate. It's pretty clear that in this arena, there are a lot of these people. We've been trying to have conversations, debates, discussions, and they do get shut down quite often. Now, the people that are shutting it down will try and blame other people. They'll try and use sophistry in order to divert themselves around this. It's all of what we've been talking about: existential cognitive veiling, this misology. I like the way that whenever you see this, even when in Socrates' day, and it makes it easy for you to explain. Socrates puts it with misanthropy, which is the hatred of man, and the people, because you get so jaded by trusting people and then people letting you down, that you come into this state where you hate everybody. You sort of give up the idea that there are good people out there. That is likened to this, but within argumentation. You get so jaded by arguments that aren't arguments, that you aren't able to see a valid and the soundness in an argument. And And I think that's pretty apparent. Since I noticed that since we've been concentrating on logic and the argumentation process, we've got less and less people have wanted to come and talk to us. Not that they wanted to come and talk to us in the first place, but when they did used to come and talk to us, they had an idea that they could counter what we were saying with their sophistry. But as we've got our arguments better, it's a bit harder for them to be able to do this sort of sophistry on us here, particularly in this server. So I'm thankful for us finding this. Particularly, we did have a discussion about where this comes from, but I mean, I think I got another page, right? Yeah, this is the misanthropy.
Does anybody, before you get into that, does anybody know the opposite of misanthropy?
Philanthropy.
Yeah.
So,
Philos,
and again,
it's friend, so he's friend of man.
Friend or love, philo, right? Philo, love or yeah, friend. You could look at it either way, but that's the opposite. So philanthropy and misanthropy, and we'll talk about, because Bev and I had a really great conversation earlier today about those words, and then something that might be the opposite of misology. But we'll talk about that later. Go ahead, Bev. Sorry.
Okay, right. So in order to give you an idea, right, because this misology, I don't know, it's like it's a word from nowhere, right? It means literally nothing. Misology, I guess, because I'd never heard of it when Mike brought it to us this morning. So you have to go and have a look. Then once you can link these, the understanding of the, hatred of logic, I mean, that's good. It gives you an understanding of what it is. But I mean, how do people come to that hatred of logic? How does that come about? So, like Socrates links it to this misanthropy. It's like Kevin said, the opposite of misanthropy is...
Hang on, I got to stop you.
Go on.
I got to stop you. You can't say it like that.
Go on. Misanthropy.
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 Yes. There you go.
Okay. Right. The opposite of misanthropy is...
philanthropy.
Philanthropy.
Yes, and opposite of misology is philology. I studied philology, so...
Did you? You have studied that?
1 year, yes. Classical philology, yes.
That's
nice.
Interesting.
We'll need to get
into that.
We'll get there in a bit, right?
I almost everything in Greek, because I started Greek on university. I had Latin in college or in lyceum, but I started Greek 1 year, and I almost forgot everything. So I'm not good in Greek. Very, very weak.
Well, we have SE for that. Don't worry about that. Great how these sort of things come about, isn't it, Kevin? I mean, how... Yeah. We'll get around to that in a bit, right? Yeah. So the idea is that I think this is why Socrates used misanthropy as a way to show how logic and this sort of... I know it's wiki, but I mean, it gives you the idea, right? The word's origin is from the Greek words misos, hatred, and anthropos, man, human. Misanthropy involves a negative evaluative attitude towards humanity that is based on a negative judgment concerning mankind's flaws. These flaws are seen as ubiquitous, i.e. possessed by almost everyone to a serious degree, and not just a few extreme cases. That is of particular importance within this arena. I've been saying this for quite a while. There's no need for you to think the people that you talk to, the negative people within this community, are a representation of the rest of humanity. They're not. They're a tiny little group that are afflicted, model afflicted. So it says, and they are also held to be entrenched, meaning that there is either no easy way to rectify them short of a complete transformation of the dominant way of life. So it's a bit depressing, really, you know, to see people that have gone through this process and that are like this. People know of people like this. The major flaws pointed out by misanthropes include intellectual flaws, moral flaws, and aesthetic flaws. Intellectual flaws like wishful thinking, dogmatism, stupidity, cognitive biases are what leads to false beliefs, what obstructs knowledge, or what violates the demands of rationality. Right? That's quite good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you begin to see this in everybody, right? You see these flaws of mankind in everyone. And moral flaws like cruelty, indifference to the suffering of others, selfishness, cowardice, are often identified with tendencies to promote what is bad or with inappropriate attitudes towards values. I've heard it a lot, right? People are easy to call other people these sort of things. Right? Now, they are only doing that, obviously, because they see it in other people. That's why people call you these names, because the people that are calling you the names of that sort of thing, they are the ones that see this in other people.
Projection.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is how projection occurs. Right? Now, if it can occur within humans, and misology is the linking of the reasoning process to this sort of a thing, then it's easy to see why people disregard obvious arguments, why people can just disregard definitions and come up with other reasons, right? Other definitions, contradictory definitions. It's okay. So we go back to misology. Now, not to be confused with misogyny. Don't confuse it with that. Misology.
Yeah, don't go there. Although we've talked about it many times with Emma, right? I think there's a good portion of certain groups of people that you know, if they're talking to Emma specifically, would have no problem identifying with misogyny.
Yeah. Right, so back to Discord. There's a few videos that you can go and have a look at professors talking about this. There's not many, and if you go and look at this on YouTube, you'll find mainly the clips from Phaedo on, you know, the Plato's play. That's where this comes from. Where else did we have? We got. Go on, Kevin. Do you want to just jog me memory of where we were, where we went from here? Because it comes misology.
Well,
Go on.
Yeah. Here's kind of how it went. And for the folks listening on YouTube and the folks in the Discord here, you got to bear with us for a minute, right? Because this is going to get a little bit how do I want to put this? It may get a little bit spiritual for you. But it is the conversation that we had earlier, and we felt like we should share this, right? So we talked about these words, right? Misology and misanthropy, and the opposites of those things, right, are philanthropy, love of mankind, right? The philanthropists, philanthropic endeavors, right? People can argue whether they're really philanthropic, if people are really doing that because they care for their fellow man and woman or not. But nonetheless, those are the words. That's what they mean. As Paper pointed out, and I didn't know this because Bev and I were talking about this, is at first I did not think that there was a philology. I was wrong. Thank you, Paper, for that. But philology would be the love of, right? Now, if I go to, I can't share my screen, but if we need to, Bev could potentially pull it up.
Yeah, cool.
But if I go to etymology.com, which I spend a lot of time on when I want to look up words and their root, right, what they mean, if I bring up philology, what it says is love of learning and literature, which is interesting because it's the same root, part of the root that's logos.
Yes,
Logos,
because words, written words. Yes,
yes,
that's what is written, but words are written. So it
yes,
is logos, but written logos.
but that's only part of the story, right? So logos is more than just written word, right? Logos is word. It's the word. That's what it is. So for those of you who are tend towards spiritualism, or if you've read the Bible before, right? You know that logos is the word that's described of Christ. That's the word. The Bible says that Jesus was basically the word. Okay, so we got into this discussion about the idea of miso, hatred, philo, love, right? And if logos can be said to be something broader than just a spoken or written word, if all logos is just words that you see on a screen or see on a piece of paper or speak out of your mouth, if that's all it ever is, then I think, in my opinion anyway, you're missing the broader interpretation of what logos is. And you're certainly missing it from the way I believe that the Greeks understood logos. Paper, would you agree with that or not?
Yes, basically it means that hatred of logos means just hatred of God.
Exactly. That's exactly where we went, which is interesting if you take that tact, right? You don't have to take that tact. You can just leave it as misology is the hatred of logic, if you want to say logos is logic, or words if you want to say logos is words, or what have you. It's fine to leave it there. But if you're philosophical, right? And this is the part of the Trivium stuff, it's part of the stuff that we talk about here on this Discord server. We're looking for those deeper meanings, and it's why many of us are so intrigued when we find these lost or um, uh, forgotten words, right? Some would say stolen words. I might say stolen words for certain things, but when you look at logos the way that we look at logos here, um, I mean, the Discord server partition that we're in right now is called Agents of the Logos. Buster has a song that talks about agent of the Logos, right? I wish Buster was on to tell us what he was thinking about when he wrote that song, but he's not. He's not here at the minute. Um, but I think it's important to understand the potential broader picture of misology. As Paper just pointed out, it can be interpreted as hatred of God. Now, what could happen if one has that kind of thinking, right? If there's a real hatred for something, what do you think a person that's experiencing real hatred, what kind of outward characteristics are they going to have? Anybody want to take a shot?
It invokes immediately devil.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. Anything else? How about just vile attitudes, vile words, vile accusations hurled,
Yeah.
right? How about taking a certain group of people and berating them, attempting to make them feel like they're stupid or somehow ignorant, or that there's no value or worth in their thoughts or their words, right? That's what, to me, that's what miso invokes, hatred, right? And you can see it just in society. We don't even have to focus it on this little arena of the internet. We could talk about this more broadly, whether it's politics or religion or, health, or, I mean, pick any topic, right? You are going to have a certain group of people that will seethe with hatred around any idea of logos around those topics, right? You're going to have people that have such hatred for the idea that you would talk about certain aspects of health or certain aspects of politics or certain aspects of religion or certain aspects of reality, that it turns them almost literally to demons. That hatred fills them with that. They're incapable then of seeing that. And that's where we started talking about going back to the ECV, the concept of ECV, right? Which is, Bev, I don't want to get the acronym wrong.
Existential cognitive veiling.
Existential cognitive veiling. So the idea that I'm so seething with anger and hatred about this that I can't see you as another human being. I have no philanthropy. There's certainly no philology, because I have no care for your words, your thoughts, as out there as they might be. There's nothing. All there is seething hatred and vile, thought, action, sometimes actions. Right? I think we several people observed this in action on was it Geos? I know Essie's in here. I don't know if he can talk, but and Askin had put I think put a short recording in the live chat a few days ago about a conversation that was happening at Geos with Moyak and Rakia was involved, and Moyak literally told Rakia, I'll kill you. Shut up, I'll kill you." Seriously. That's where this kind of thinking goes, right? And is it any wonder that Plato wrote about this in Phaedo, because it was about the execution of Socrates. They hated Socrates so much, seething with it, that they ended up killing him because of it. That's way bigger than, oh, it's a word, or it's hatred of a word, or it's hatred of words. It's a bigger philosophical issue, if you will.
Yeah, can
At
I
least
just
in my mind.
yeah, can I bring us in, because what we do is we've noticed here is words change meanings, and if you can change the words and the meanings of things, then they don't come across as they should. This is a perfect example, right? When Paper said he's done philology, he was talking about studying language, right, and the development of the English language, sort of, But when you go back and look at this, I've got it on screen at the minute. The origin of the word starts from philologia, which is the love of learning. And so it's developed from learning into the word and the development of the word through English. So it's now study of language, whereas the original meaning is learning. So the words in the past were vehicles to convey a learning process. Now that's been changed. It just means language and the learning of a language, the history of language and how it's changed. Well, that's hiding something to me. Literally, the word, the logos, the argument, the knowledge, the way to gain knowledge, the learning process is all wrapped up in the words. And if they've changed the word philology to mean the history of the language, then it's lost its original meaning. The meaning is within the words is where we learn, and we learn from this discussion. If we're dealing with misology, these are people who hate the discussion. They hate the discussion because that's where knowledge comes from. And they don't like the idea of us talking to each other. Because literally, we've done it in this server, in this Discord server. It's just a group of people that have come together to find a way to gain knowledge from the discussions that we have with each other. I think there's lessons to be had here all the way through this. Misology is people that hate the discussion, and the discussion is just there to help us communicate better with each other and learn, gain knowledge. That's how we progress. There are people that don't like that process of learning. They have a different way of learning, and their way of learning is words that are just given to them.
Exactly.
That's why they don't like this. They don't like us discussing these things.
And what they're also missing is when you're in communication with one another, even if you might be at odds, right? Even if you're questioning, like, I'm not so sure about that. It doesn't really matter because you're still fellowshipping.
Yeah.
You're still being, in a way, philanthropic. You are loving your fellow man or woman because you care for them enough to have a conscientious, reasonable communication. And Bev's right. They hate it. They hate it. Seething anger over it. It's amazing.
Yeah. And can you imagine how much they'd hate if they heard some of the conversations that we have that aren't live?
Ooh.
Right?
Like this morning?
This
Holy
is a
mackerel.
piece of what goes on you hear in the live chat. If you really should just come into the Discord. We don't record it. When we're having, there are a certain conversations that can be misconstrued a lot by people, globalogicians that may quote everything that you write and take it out of just take it out of meaning, out of context, and make it mean something else in their own minds. We know that happens. We'll go over a few of the strange occurrences that happen, but within this at the minute, these words that we use through the trivium, the understanding of grammar, the formulation of the words together in the logical structure, and the rhetoric as how we portray these words, they can only be done on a one-to-one basis, but it's better off if it's a dialectic. If you're listening to a dialectic, that's the best way for this to come across, and maybe get involved with the dialectic if you want to. I mean, that's the way we all learn, and we learn from everybody else that comes in, and the discussions that come around. Like this morning, for instance, Mike Jones just dropped us this word. He wasn't able to talk very much or anything, but the conversations that have come from this one word is amazing. And I bet he's jealous that he's not been around to actually be part of all of the conversations.
I'm sure he is, because I would be.
But this word is telling a lot, explaining a lot.
Yes.
So the whole problem, how to name this problem, for example, with globers, prominent globe logicians and proofless scientists, this is misology for
Yeah.
them. Good word.
It was.
So,
It's ideal, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So I can officially label them misologists.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, this word will be getting used a lot, and as we know, they're going to have to try and flip this back around on us, but they can't, because we actually have logical arguments to put forward. They don't, so they can't say that we hate the argument, we hate the discussion. We obviously don't. We're here. We've got an open server. Anybody can come in and have a chat. That's what we want. We want that discussion. We don't hate it. We love it. And that was another thing that we had a discussion about today. It seems to be a bit of a common thread amongst most people within this server. It would be a good conversation to have to find out. I never believed in the word hate. I don't understand what it is. It always put me off when I heard anybody saying that, because it just doesn't make any sense. There is no reason to hate, and it's an emotion that I don't possess. I don't have it. I have no understanding of what it is. So I can't get involved with any discussion on that. I can't see the purpose in hating something. I can see the purpose in trying to understand something. But if there's any hatred, then that communication just gets shut down. There's no way to improve from a hatred, because the discussion is gone. There's no way you can communicate with somebody if you're filled with hate for that group, person, whatever. And it brings other ugly words like bigotry, the hate of things. And if you hate discussion and argumentation, logic, then I'd say you're in for a bad time. It leads to dark places, possibly sort of a death, let's say. This of death of the mind, death of the
Madness.
soul.
Yeah.
I would say that there is a difference between saying hatred as a feeling and this kind of hatred, because it is not based on feelings itself. This is, for me, it would be just reversed or pervert will against, for example, truth or logic. It is not, it may be expressed in feelings, but sometimes not. Just some people are may appear to be kind to you, but they may have this hatred for logic, even if they are polite for you. It is not, I think, about just feelings. This part of our psyche, which we share with animals. But this is some kind of higher grade of hatred, like sorry, like mind hatred. So I think it is something different than hatred in feelings. It may be expressed in feelings, but not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Yeah, I would say that if you're a hater of the discussion, right, it's because an argument could be laid out within that discussion, right? You're a hater of the words because the words can be placed in a certain order. And as with an argument or a very good argument, it compels the mind to the conclusion, the obvious conclusion. And it's that these people, the misologists, hate. They hate having to come to a conclusion that's clear because
Yes,
it's not the conclusion they want.
So I would say that this is a problem with their will, because if a conclusion is compelling your mind, you have to use some force back, and this force back, it is your will, and that's why many say that this is pervert will, like in devil, because devil or this dark angel has good nature, but pervert will. So the only way how he is described as bad is his will. So I cannot say that it would be matter of, for example, misunderstanding or lack of logical thinking in that kind of persons. They have just backward will, pervert will, upside down will.
Yeah, it's quite hard when you start on this discussion about because you're talking about other people, and these other people are going to hate the discussion that we've been saying for quite a while. ECV, right? It was so good because it's existential cognitive veiling. You know they can't discuss it. And this is the reason they can't discuss anything that we talk about, is because they hate the discussion. They hate talking with people. I'm guessing even with their own kind. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, have you ever heard a group of misologists talking? You think about it now, you might have done actually.
Maybe they talk to each other, but this is not a debate, for sure. They are just patting their shoulders all together. But I don't think that they can debate amongst each other, because they would argue against each other. So it means that they would hate each other also. Because
you couldn't do any reasoning, could you? You couldn't propose any sort of an argument where a reasoning process comes around, because they hate it.
Yes, so if someone thinking, logical thinking on their side is basically forbidden. Yeah. Because they would discuss simple things as we discuss with them. So I would say that this guy who would start that would be immediately expelled from their society.
Yeah, I think looking at this now, I would say that the whole idea of the flat earth within this discussion arena has been made up because these guys can't talk about actual reasoning. So they have to pretend there's something there, like a massive straw man, that they can do their pretend reasoning around. Then they don't ever actually have to deal with any actual logic. They've made up their own or I don't know, strange process, like a storytelling thing. It has to be, right? If you can't discuss things and not have a logical process, the only way you could possibly do that is to put forward a dramatization of something where it's scripted.
Yes, and it shows clearly because on the flat Earth side also, because they have topics they don't want to touch, and topics they eagerly debate because it is easy and well known topic, easy to refute, or some people learned to refute this one concrete topic, but other topics are not to be touched because they would lead to inconvenient conclusions, for example, and would be, for example, the dangerous for the model. So they don't touch them. So it is like selective logical thinking. I don't like it because I think that if you have logic, you should use it everywhere you can. Even if you lead you, it would lead you to inconvenient conclusions, and you will have to change your mind. And I did many times. I had to change my mind in many topics because my logical thinking led me to that. It was inconvenient many times, was painful for my worldview, but still, I am doing that, and I will do that. So if it will involve my changing of my mind in some topic, I will change my mind. And some people love their model so much that they are not able to change their mind because their model is in danger. And this is the way where I am not going to.
Yeah,
that's me.
The words are learning, right? Don't forget about that. In the old times, this was classed as the words were part of the learning process, obviously. They're for communication. And communication is for learning.
Yes, grammar. So you are learning how to use words. So first part of Trivium, grammar.
Yeah, yeah. And the love of it, right? So if you can then take the words and make them into not logic, right? Take them out of not learning or out of the learning process of what logic is for the words. What are they?
Spelling wizardry.
Yeah, you are deceiving people. If you're not learning or helping people to learn with words, you are deceiving them. You are doing magic tricks, sophistry. It's the only thing you could be doing. So anybody that doesn't like discussing things, to me, is doesn't want to learn. Like anybody that considers that a discussion with anybody really can't be any sort of a learning process. I mean, not like 100 times talking to somebody, but like within a conversation, you should always be able to learn something from that conversation within the discussion and the words from back and forwards within the dialectic.
Well, here's on that topic, right? Here's a good question. I don't know if everybody would agree or not, but you have the idea of rhetoric, right? Which is one person outwardly using grammar and logic to try to convince or evoke a certain response. And then you have dialectic, which is the communication. It's between two or more people, and you're discussing things, you're communicating things. So, question is, can true learning, or can you have love of learning without having the dialectic?
I would say not myself. You need communication. You
I think you
can't.
do.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
do it in a speech form. The speech has to be rote, and the learning process has to happen there. I mean, you were saying rhetoric within the dialectic. I would say both of the people within the dialectic would use their own rhetoric.
Their own rhetoric.
Yeah.
Correct, during that process. But I do think it's a process, because
Yeah.
even if you went back to whenever whenever language began, right? Unless it's between two or more people, what's the use of actually using words or uttering words? There's no use for it. So the idea of learning, in any way, I think, whether it's words or anything else, has to be, in my opinion, I think anyway, between two or more people. That's where the real learning occurs. You've said that before, Bev, right?
Yeah.
That when we get together here on this server and we have discussions, it's just so much more, I don't know, meaningful, palpable, uh, real. Whatever words you want to use, when there's more than just one or two people actually having a discussion, a real communication. A lot of learning happens, I think.
Yeah, and being lucky to be able to be in a position where I'm always around here, and also the multitude of people that come in here, the brilliant minds, I can have the ability to pass these little things on to different people throughout the day. So I'm lucky enough to be here to have the initial bit where Mike came in at the beginning, and then have a discussion with you, like say, and have a discussion with Kev. I've had many discussions during the day over this one word and how this goes, and it's been amazing. Like, this is the true learning process that goes on within here, and it's just through the words, and then the discussion that comes from that. That's where the true magic happens, through learning. And I feel blessed to be able to be in a position that I am, and enjoy these conversations that happen all day, nearly every day, right? I'm blessed. I am really blessed. And again, when we talk about this, the love of learning, I have to go back to the spiritual part of it. That I'm of the opinion that Logos is what I've given myself up to, that Logos. Being in a position that being a carer, and feeling sort of, you could feel trapped within, not much hope for anything, but just giving everything over to the Logos, and then finding all of these, call them coincidences, if you will, that occur. Some of them are too strange to be coincidences. So I consider those gifts from the Logos, which takes the idea of what Logos is out of the word form. But the only way you can use Logos is to communicate it through a word form.
Totally agree with that, 100%.
It's hard to express it, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, it is. Well, I mean, NORAD, or for those on the YouTube would know him as Kevlar, was in, and as Bev and I were having this conversation, he literally had to come off of his muted mic and say, "I just got goosebumps from what you guys have been talking about. This is phenomenal." That's not just a passive learning, like you're reading a textbook, quote, learning, right? That's something much deeper than that. And I think that's what you're describing, Beth. That's why it's hard to describe, you know, what happens sometimes around here during the day, the daytimes before the shows. It's deep stuff. It's deep and it's meaningful, and I mean, Buster comes in with music sometimes, and it's just phenomenal, phenomenal. And by the way, this also goes back to, I mean, if we are correct in the best way to learn is through communication and discussion, then going back to that book, Bev, that you found, The Lost Tools of Learning and the Mind of the Maker.
Yeah.
Holy crap, man. It makes all the sense in the world why we seem to be at where we are at today as a human, as mankind, as humans.
Yeah,
In our
they've
society, in
taken
our
the
respective
logic away from
societies.
us, right? Within
Yes.
the method of teaching. They've just
Yes.
extracted logic from from the reason. They've took reasoning and logic just out of any sort of process.
Absolutely. Here, if I can I read this
Yeah,
part
yeah.
of the book? Um, so this is back to the Lost Tools. If you haven't read the Lost Tools of Learning, it's literally 20 pages. It's so easy to read, but it is so, in my opinion, important. This is what the author says. It is, of course, quite true that bits and pieces of the medieval tradition still linger or have been revived in the ordinary school syllabus of today. Remember, this was back in the 50s, 40s or 50s, I think. Some knowledge of grammar is still required when learning a foreign language, perhaps I should say, is again required. For during my own lifetime, we passed through a phase when the teaching of declensions and conjugations was considered rather reprehensible. And it was considered better to pick these things up as we went along. School debating societies, this is the important piece, this next bit. School debating societies flourish, essays are written, the necessity of self-expression is stressed and perhaps even overstressed. But these activities are cultivated more or less in detachment as belonging to the special subjects in which they are pigeonholed, rather than as formal one coherent scheme of mental training to which all subjects stand in subordinate relation. Grammar belongs especially to the subject of foreign languages and essay writing to the subject called English, while dialectic has become almost entirely divorced from the rest of the curriculum and is frequently practiced unsystematically and out of school hours as a separate exercise only very loosely related to the main business of learning. This was back in the 50s when this person was saying that debate and dialectic have gone. Now, I remember in my high school, which was a Catholic high school, back in the late 70s and early 80s, we touched on debate. I think we may have had one in my 4 years of high school. Actual debate, right? Real debate, not debate like some people think debate, arguing, yelling, and screaming, right? And that's a great point, because we've said that communication, the dialectic, is how you learn. If they take the dialectic out of the schools, if that's a lost tool of learning, whether it's in schools or even as an adult, if you can't find it anywhere, if you can't get it anywhere, what hope do you have of really learning, in the sense of learning, in the sense that the ancient Greeks might have considered learning, right? All you have then are the shadow giants, the received opinion. It's no wonder why we're at where we're at.
Dogma.
Dogma, yeah. Which, for all those people who hate religion, but yet practice religion through their dogma, it's
Yeah.
it's a bit strange to me.
But that's why the logic's been took away, right? They can't see the contradiction of what they're actually doing. They are the ones that are preaching the dogma, but then having a go at people with faith.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that, hypocritically, they are the ones with the well,
The gatekeepers. They
Yeah.
are the religious gatekeepers themselves.
well, they have far more faith than anybody I've ever met as a
No doubt.
religious person. I'd say that as a religious person, but I mean, religion. If you consider religion to be a faith-based thing, however you want to define it, then I would say that the model affliction has given these people the most amount of faith of anything, I would say.
Absolutely.
And they won't come and talk about that because
Nope.
it's too much. It's
Yeah.
part of this process. They hate it. They hate logic that can show them the contradictions. It literally, if they were to see the contradictions that are around the model, they would literally break down. I think.
Yeah, the ECV would kick in.
Yeah.
Before then, I'm sure.
Yeah, but they've got to be in a constant state of that, denying logic.
Yes.
Imagine how fearful of everything you must be. Any conversation could lead you in that place where you hate. Just somebody could
Absolutely.
just slip of a tongue somewhere. You could just hear it. And maybe you're hearing it in another conversation with other people in the background, seething in your hatred of somebody talking logically, making you derive logical thoughts just at the hearing of their conversation. It must be terrible.
Yes, for that people, yes, it would be terrible because if they are listening carefully to some kind of debate, real debate, it would be torture for them because they have to follow this reasoning the other persons are conducting. So this process of following the process of thinking of other people would be torture for them.
Yeah,
So-
I think that's why we here at On the Level Discord server practice a thing called advanced simplicity. And the idea of this is to be able to break things down so simply that like a 5 or 6 year old could understand the concepts and derive the conclusion. And that process we call advanced simplicity. And we've took logic into that and argumentation into that and put that through that method to come up with the most simple thing. And it must be torture for them to listen to that. For them to
Yes.
listen to the argument, simple things.
The more simple argument, it hits harder. So this is like knockout. So so this is maybe not torture, but two punch combination. So
They
it
have to
hits hard.
deny it's an argument and all sorts of stuff. Like it really, once you find something so simple and you can lay it out so simply, it really does expose the diletheist, the misologist. They show themselves by their response to these simple arguments. And I feel that we're lucky enough to have been led into this position that we're in by Logos. It's just gathered a group of people together. Call us misfits. Call us the people that don't fit in to any of these other groups that people want to
Yep.
keep putting us into.
Yes, I don't fit. I don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I don't feel the need to fit in those other groups. You're totally correct, Bev. I have felt I talked about, my coming into this Discord server and what I got out of it. Um, you know, No Rad or Kevlar earlier today talked about the same thing. Many of us feel that way, and I said, for me personally, um, this is because I think of these kinds of conversations as true fellowship. To me, this is my church. So, and I know there's somebody in YouTube didn't like using the word religion, and the religion is a loaded word, right? But don't think about it as structured religion from man. Many people have, including me, have problems with that. Some people don't, and it's fine. But it's really the idea of spirituality, and that it's more than just you and your mind. It's something magical happens when people come together in good faith that genuinely care for each other, even if they don't always agree on everything. There's magic that happens in those communications. There's magic that happens when Buster sings a new song. It's I call it magic in my faith. What I really believe is I think that's God. But call it whatever you want. Call it magic, call it God, call it, I don't care. But that's what we're talking about here. And we get it here. It's amazing.
Yeah, see, within the idea of what religion is, I go from what I particularly got from the words, right? So to me, we were having a discussion a bit earlier on, and we said that logic or logos, it just is, right? There's no way to describe it really, because the process or whatever, that reasoning ability is what stands man out from the other beasts. Let's say it's the being rational, being able to do this reasoning process, to go through this, right? So it's just is, and it's really hard to explain it. Well, I would say religion is the way that man has taken what is and tried to interpret it into something. Now, rather than you taking the what is and for yourself, you take on the words of somebody else's interpretation of the what is. That then becomes the religion. If you take that on without feeling the what is for yourself, and understanding that what is for yourself, then I don't know, that's where I would call it the faith-based thing, because you're having to take something that you personally don't have any knowledge of. Whereas if you get in touch with the what is, then you do have knowledge of it. So it's not really a faith in that similar sort of way. It then becomes a problem of how you use the words to describe what it is. Which is, again, back to the dialectic and the conversations that can go back and forth. There is no need for the faith, I think. Although people are trying to get to that conversation about that. But there is no need for that sort of a discussion, I don't think.
No, I agree with you. I don't think there necessarily needs to be in it. And regardless, the idea of faith is what you put your faith in, right? What are you putting your faith in? And we've talked about here many times the idea of proof, right? Can someone else give you a proof? Can someone else put that proof into you and make it your proof? And at least here, I think most of us agree the answer to that question is no. The proof is yours. It's a personal thing. It's a personal journey. Bev's journey is not my journey. My journey is not Paper's journey. Paper's journey is not Mobius's journey. So on and so forth. Right? They're all different. But if you want a proof, and I would say a faith, or whatever you call it, right? Or you call it logos, whatever it is, that's you. That's you personally. But it doesn't mean that talking with other people and hashing things out and throwing things against one another isn't beneficial for building that up. That's why I call it fellowship. When I come here and I engage in these conversations, I feel fellowship. And that is, like it or not, people that don't like it, I'm sorry, but that is a spiritual concept. The idea of fellowship is spiritual. It is, in my opinion, why humans were created. We weren't created to live by ourselves forever. In fact, it's been, I think, documented many, many times the negative impacts of isolation and not being with other people, not having fellowship with other people. It's detrimental. But yet we have so many people, like Bev said, right? There are people who will sit and talk with one another, but all of them have a received opinion from somebody else. None of it is experiential themselves. They've never been on that journey for themselves. And if they run across somebody like us, they have to give us that received opinion or denigrate us because we won't accept it, which is dogma. That's dogma. That is religion. That is what people rail against when they say I'm an atheist. If they say I'm an atheist, right? And they'll try to condemn you for it. They'll try to excommunicate you from the human race because you won't receive the received opinion. It's amazing. It's religious dogma. Yet they claim to be non-religious. Oh no. You're religious. Trust me when I tell you.
Yes, it's like saying atheists say, prove me that God exists, and I say, prove me that he doesn't exist. So, so this is they are using the same method as a religious person would use against atheists, and they say that they are atheists. So they are using their dogma to disprove your dogma. So they
Right.
are religious.
Yeah. Yeah, but because they are misologists, they can't see the logical fallaciousness that they have inbuilt into their thing. It's let's say it's a stolen concept.
Stolen concept.
Again, like they love it. And they wouldn't be able to do that if they had any idea about logic. The logic bullshit sniffer would sort that. That's why they can't have it. That's why they hate logic. They hate reasoning. They hate discussion. And that's why they're not around here anymore. So we've got logic to thank for us being rid of the trolls. Is there anything any better that we could ever have done to get rid of trolls as to just come up with truth, logic, and argumentation?
No, 100%. 100%.
To be left with the group of people that we have been left with as well.
Yep. And hopefully others will join.
Amazing.
I mean,
yeah.
As Bev said, it doesn't mean we're closed, right? That's not what it is. But when you get the trolls, right, that constantly come in, the hatred of the logos, the hatred, it's a negative energy that you just, why? There's just no need. Go on with your religion, man. I don't care. Go on with your dogma, but take it somewhere else. Just because I won't take your received opinion, leave us alone.
It does
all
put more
fine.
sense into the hatred of logic, right?
Yeah, it sure does.
We are just a group of people in a random Discord server, right, talking to each other. Why in the past did they have to keep sending people in here? Because they didn't want to be in here. Clearly. They did. They had to keep us away from these logical conversations to disrupt with trolls, because that's what trolls are there for. The trolls are the ones sitting underneath the bridges.
100. Yep, absolutely right.
Trying to stop you from crossing over, whereas us with our conversations and the logical understanding that we go with, the reasoning processes, we're building those bridges so we can get over them to get to new places. The trolls are the ones stuck on bridges past. We've gone over all of those bridges and we've left them way far behind.
In the dust.
They
absolutely.
cannot affect us anymore. That's why we are troll free. So if you want to come in and have a proper discussion about any of these issues without somebody obfuscating and obviously trying to distract and deceive, this is the place to come.
Yeah. Point out a couple comments in the YouTube chat that I'm looking at. Lamel Forever says, within the dialectic, you have to be intellectually honest, though. Absolutely, right? We talked about in a dialectic, if there's two parties, right? Both parties are using their rhetoric to have a dialectic conversation. Absolutely. And if one or more, both, are not honest, that's sophistry. They're utilizing sophistry to try to gain dialectic. That's impossible.
Yeah,
And
the better you get at logic, the more you can spot the fallacies and the sophistry. And that comes through the dialectic, right? That's why they hate the discussion. The dialectic can't happen when one side hates a discussion. It's just impossible. I think I did get that. That was in the discussion, yeah. His Misology made him an impossible person to talk to.
There you go.
So dialectic isn't possible with somebody who hates discussion. That's why the discussion within this server is so good. Everybody actually wants to have the discussion. And there's some brilliant places we've gone to. I mean, I'm thankful for being here, for being in the position I am. Like I say, I feel blessed. People can say whatever they want about me. It doesn't matter. I know how lucky I am to be where I am now.
Yep. Balanced Truth said, hey, Balanced Truth, shout out. Said, I was saying this the other day. Faith, hope, goodness has nothing to do with religion. It's just personal traits. Yeah. You either want to have fellowship with other human beings, have those discussions, have the dialectic, see where that gets you, or you don't, or you hate it. And you only want somebody to nod their head and agree with you, or you'll go after them. You'll tell them how stupid they are. You'll tell them how uneducated they are, right? You're so uneducated. Why don't you go learn something? Wow, your dogma is showing. Your robes are showing there, buddy. Who you say you're not religious at all? Your religious robes are showing a little bit. You may want to look at that.
Yeah, the globe is the biggest religion. Well, let's say not the globe. What you call blue marble science. That's the biggest religion at the minute that I've been encountered with. I have talked to religious people, but the the globe pushers, those people are by far the most devoted to their cause I've ever known. I mean, I've had Jehovah's Witnesses come round and had a really good discussion with them. And they've been that's been pleasant. The globe guys, whoo,
No way.
It's a different matter.
I firmly believe that in a different time, and maybe even that time is coming again, they burn people at the stake.
Yeah.
I truly believe that with every fiber of my being.
Yeah, I know. I'd probably be one of the first. They definitely don't like me. But like I say, they're only a tiny group. They're not that billions that they think they are. There's, to be honest with you, there's about 10 of them, even less, that are able to talk about it, because they're all misologists. Every one of them. And if they're not misologists, then bring them round here for a conversation. They will be by the end of it. I can guarantee you.
Exactly. Yeah, but I while I agree with you in this little arena, I totally agree with you. But we did talk about this a little bit earlier, that in general, in humankind, right, whether they know it or not, there are a lot of misologists. They may not know it or express it, but we have seen it in, let's say, because we're on YouTube, the unpleasantness of the last almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
The idea of doing away with logic, uh, and actually real hatred for people who are trying to apply some level of logic in what went on around the world in the last just about 3 years. So there's a lot of people that I believe, would fall into that category, and do fall into that category given the right topic.
Well, I don't think we're ever going to be able to have that discussion. These people hate the discussion.
Right.
They hate the argument. They hate, I would say they hate me. They hate people.
That's clear.
They definitely hate flat earthers. That's one group they're proud to be bigoted against. And they'll tell everybody that. But by extension, they can just put anybody in that group that they want. That's how illogical these people are. I've got an example from Twitter here. Earlier, I made a tweet. Wow, how far back does it go here? I was talking to a guy, Ghetto Fix, guy who does t-shirts on Twitter. Hopefully get a chat with him at some point. I put, he's right, because he was saying that, the Earth's not flat. We can prove many things, but one of those is that the Earth's not flat. So I say he's right. The Earth definitely isn't flat. Mountains and valleys negate flatness, but the water is level. Hashtag on Twitter. Try thinking. And this guy says, you're a flat earther, obviously. So if you're not aware, the illogicalness of it is when you say the Earth is definitely not flat, definitely isn't flat, that makes you a flat earther.
Yep.
It's brilliant. It's genius. So that's how their logical system works. You cannot have a discussion with these people. The misology makes them impossible to talk to. And it gets wrote down in Twitter. These people will never come in here for a verbal conversation because, they get exposed within the word form on Twitter. What would they be like? What would somebody be like who hates discussion, who hates logic, be like in a conversational form?
Well, we've seen it, haven't we?
Yeah. I called it Alice in Wonderland, right? Because they can't seem to make a reasoning process, but this misology, explains it. It's like we already know that they cannot have logic. They hate logic. So whatever it is that they replace it with can only be illogic, which is literally nonsense. There's no sense in it. It's just nonsense. So you can't talk with somebody who speaks nonsense. Illogical thinking. Illogical statements. It just doesn't make any sense. There's contradictions everywhere. So if you've ever wondered why you're in a room talking to people and nothing seems to make sense, it's not you. Literally, there will be nonsense being spoken. That's why you can't understand it. It's impossible to understand nonsense. And if people speak in contradictions, then how do you trust what they're saying back to you? Madness.
Yeah, total madness.
So that's why we're here, lucky enough to be here in a Discord server where the people that are in here actually do want to communicate. They do want the discussion, the dialectic, the learning process has gone on, and I've learned way more than I ever have. Sorry, that's my kettle.
Yeah, I just again responded to a YouTube comment. V. Thomas says, "Burnt at the stake. The Witchfinder generals weren't self-defining atheists. No, they weren't self-defining atheists, but I submit they were in actuality atheists. Because anyone that can take a dogma and then because a group of people or a person doesn't fit that dogma, they'll burn them at the stake. They're definitely not the opposite of an atheist. They are an atheist. Whether they self-define that way or not is irrelevant. It's the reality of it, right? We don't do that here. People come in, as Bev said, they have their opinions. If you come in here and you have an opinion on, let's say, for argument's sake, the shape of the earth, fine. You want to go off claiming that you still believe that the shape of the earth is spherical? Good on you. Fantastic. Did we have a decent conversation? Were we considerate to one another? That's all that really matters. What we're not going to do is say, we need to put you at the stake. We need to take you out. We need to silence you for your opinion. No, that's ridiculous. But we have given some on this Discord server anyway. We have given some examples of what happens when you do censor certain words, let's say, because we've done that here as an experiment. You would not believe the kind of reaction that you get when you take one of their words away. But they want to take all of our words away simply because we have a different idea than they do about what logos is and what learning is and how we go about doing that. It's a phenomenal psychological example to me anyway.
Yeah, this is we've been talking about this stuff all day. It's been great, and there's obviously plenty more pieces to be fit together within this. Right. Yeah, so this is an ongoing conversation. Please feel free to come in and get involved in these type of conversations. Like we say, the conversation that has been occurring within the conversation that cannot occur anymore because of the hatred of it, that means that the only conversation that will happen will be between us. Like I was saying to Kevin with that earlier, I'm fine with the conversations that we do have with the group of people that we do have, but any new people that want to come in, I don't want them to feel like we're a closed group that's too hard to get into. I mean, we're far from that. Just come in and have a conversation. And it's easy to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get more people in. Sorry.
Well, to that point, there's Carl K in the Discord.
Oh no, he's gone.
Did Carl just leave? Oh,
Yeah.
he just left.
Yeah, he's
Dang it.
I think. Oh, he's back again.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah, I've just got to nip away for a minute. So, do you want to just have a conversation about something for a minute or so?
Oh, we've had lots of conversations. So I don't know. Let's see. Carl, I don't know if you can come off of mic or not, but welcome. Paige in the YouTube chat said they love to tell me I don't understand what they claim because I don't believe it, but I do understand. I just can't accept so many assumptions and contradictions. Verticals can be horizontal, etc. Yeah, I mean, and then the consequences as far as they're concerned for you taking that stance, right? You're somehow subhuman to a lot of these people because you take that stance. It's absolutely amazing.
Hi guys.
Hey Carl.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm just gonna listen to this. I'm not be able to talk so much, so I'm just gonna listen to you guys. So
Oh yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I just
Yeah.
wanted to welcome you because your name
Yeah.
was new to me. So
yeah, thanks, man.
yeah, you're
Have
welcome.
a good one.
Yeah, thank
have
you.
a good one.
Anybody else got anything? Any thoughts on the subject? Bev and I have been taking up most of the time.
I have something to say about what Paige said because opinion it is about something you don't know with a certitude. So there is something you don't know in that kind of knowledge, and you can create opinion, and you can agree or disagree because you like more this opinion for some reason, even psychological reason, and this is okay. But if there is certain knowledge with given proof and you are just rejecting this proof, not because this proof is fallacious, it is perfectly valid and true and whatever, and people reject that. So they don't reject opinion, but knowledge, science, or logics. So this is different than rejecting opinion, because while rejecting opinion, it is safe. You can do that without being accused of being not logical. But
Right.
if someone is refuting or denying proof, solid proof, then at least for me, this is different story, because I would say that I can see that person as being illogical for some reason, whatever this reason is, but still I can see that he is illogical.
Yeah.
So this is different story than opinion.
Right. I agree. Mike in the YouTube chat said I had to explain some of the heliocentric model to a friend of mine, and he ended up calling me stupid for not believing we live in a sphere because I understood the model better. So what happens, right? It goes to that lowest common denominator in just about every case. Just about every case. Mike further said most people hate their paradigm being challenged. It seems. I think it's more than their paradigm, actually. It may be just that, but I tend to think it's more than that. I think it's a personal. To them it becomes a personal attack that you wouldn't accept the received opinion.
Isn't that illogical though, right?
Yeah.
If you're the one explaining their model and then you get called for stupid for not believing that you live on it, I mean, that is an illogical conclusion that somebody's come to say that to you.
Yes, completely logical, because many times I put some contradictions in globe model, and it turned out that I know more about, or some things I know more about this globe model than Glober, and it still cannot convince them that this model is bunk. So yes, it is illogical.
Yeah, when you can literally say a reductio ad absurdum that they will agree with as part of the framework of the model that you're meant to think you live on. There's some sort of a logical breakdown there. There's got to be.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier too, Bev. Who knows in the YouTube chat says when it's undeniable true, you will see it.
Yeah.
And we said earlier today when we were talking about this that many of us have had the feeling before that when you hear something or you entertain something, especially in these conversations, like I said, I consider it fellowship. You feel like it's just right. You just go, that sounds right to me. Well, why does that sound right to me? I don't have necessarily any reason for it to sound right to me. Let's see if we can come up with some solid reasoning around why that sounds right. And those are the conversations that are so invaluable. But again, as Bev said, some people don't want you to have those conversations. They'll stop at nothing to stop you from having those conversations.
Yeah, I think that comes from I can relate that to Plato. I think he said, like, the perfect form, right, is already known. You already know everything within logic. Within your lifetime, you have to then rediscover it. You find it again. You remember it because it's already known. And that's the concept of something just feeling right. It you can place it and it fits, it works, and you realize it, right? It was already there. It was already there. It was just that you rediscovered it, or you found it. And that's, again, that's sort of spiritual, but it's not spiritual, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because it's a personal thing.
I would say that this is spiritual because we have, as humans, we have spirituality inside. This is our mind. This is part of spirituality. So this logic thinking, our mind, generally speaking, not whole soul, because animals have feelings and they have life in themselves also, but this is different kind of life. This is intellectual life. So only humans have that. So, and this is spiritual. So yes, it is intellectual. For me, intellectual and spiritual are the same.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Paper. And I think you said it earlier, right? It is what differentiate, or maybe it was Bev, but it's what differentiates humans as rational, quote, rational animals from generic animals. When we did the one of the first triviums, I think Raven had brought up the porphyry tree. If those of you that went through that with us remember that, and remember they had down the list of um, uh, organic things. Eventually there was animals, and then there was rational animals, and then there was a specific human being. So yeah, I would tend to agree with you. What differentiates us from just any other animal? And I think some people would say nothing.
Well,
In fact, I've heard some people say nothing.
you would have to say that, right? If these people are misologists, then they hate rational thought. They hate that discussion, the rational thinking part, the logical part, which would then mean they're not rational. They despise that rational thinking, that process. So they wouldn't be using that reasoning, would they?
Yep.
Yes, yes and no, because
Well, yeah.
because to deny that they still have to use logic.
Mhm.
So it is impossible mission, because every effort they take to refute reasoning, they have to use reason. So impossible. And that makes them, I would say, maybe harshly pitiful beings.
Gonna make
Because
them mad. Make them. If I hope none of them are watching at the minute or listening. You know that they won't be able to listen to this, because hearing this and putting that through a thought process, a rational thought process, is going to make them see the contradiction that they cannot see. They just go mad. It's a terrible position, being put with logic and the model together for you. The two can't coexist. It's impossible. One of them's illogical, which obviously can't go with logic. Will be explained by nobody ever being able to come and talk about this in a rational way.
they are trying to do that, but they are making fallacious arguments to defend their model. But still, they are trying to use logic in fallacious way, but
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, I
So-
see your point, Paper.
Yeah.
Well, in the end, they are human beings, right? Even though they might not grant us the same
Even they are
courtesy.
denying that you are not that you are human. You
Yeah,
have to be human.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a terrible place for them to be in. To be conflicting with their own thought processes. It's going to lead to madness, insanity. And all because hatred, I'm guessing. To allow that hatred in of anything is the basis of this. Don't let hatred in.
Yeah, it's bad, right? We talked about everything this morning. It was so great, such a great conversation.
Oh look, Wally's already found out we've got a new word.
Oh, has he now?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Wally's the first one.
But we said, the old for those of you Star Wars fans, for the whole Yoda thing was right on.
Yeah.
You don't, if you start down the dark path of hate, right, forever will it dominate your destiny. You can't. It's so hard to pull back once you feel that. Once you let that in, it is very difficult to pull it back, because honestly, if you and Bev, I believe when Bev says he doesn't understand hate, there are many people who have felt that way, and I have personally. I don't like what it does to me, I don't like the person that I become. It's not me, and it's very hard to pull back from, because in a strangely, I'll say, demonic way for me, it feels good. In a weird, warped, demonic way, it feels good to be there. And it's not a good place. It is definitely not a good place, because it will drive you mad.
They won't listen to you, Kevin.
I know it. I know it. I'm just preaching. I'm preaching. It's all right. All right.
Oh, are we? We can keep coming back to that, right? Because I'm guessing we have to sort of give a bit of an example of this, and I have since we go over. I mean, Logic Night was yesterday. Our resident, I don't know, what do you call him? Like an intern.
Who are we talking about?
Betty.
Yeah, well, not resident necessarily, visiting.
Well, he keeps coming round. He's back again, you know, making comments on YouTube. And
yeah.
One of them, right? So we were talking about how you do navigation, right? And that I said that the whole idea of navigation was to see where you're going, to get you to the place where you want to go to. And Betty's obviously commenting around this, and he likes to. I don't know why he's doing this. I think this is showing the mental breakdown he's showing. He just does a timestamp, and then he says Saragaki, and then quotes Saragaki, who says, "You're not actually trying to find your position. You're just measuring an angle within the thing," and he just puts a smiley face after it. Well, you know, double dot and a bracket, sideways smiley face. And then he does another timestamp of 12 seconds later. Bev, you should already know where you are. And another smiley face. I mean, this is the Globe Logician, just literally quoting what we've said. And then he quotes another one at 142. Says, some of the conversations we have, they are hilarious. And he agrees. He puts yes. But he's not here to hear all of the conversations that we've had. Unless he's listened to the old videos of some of the stupid things. I mean, one of the conversations that we had was with one of the Blue Marble scientists, and he literally said that a square can have 3, 4, or 5 sides. Now, I consider that hilarious, and Betty's agreeing, so thanks to Betty. But I mean, Betty does some logic here, and this is again the hatred of logic goes to as far with this guy. They've made a character. If you don't know, Betty, he came in, started pretending he's the Globe Logician. We've not jokingly, we've called him the Proofless Globe Logician. It may sound like a joke, but we're not. It's serious. He admits he has no proof, yet he claims to be a logician. He claims to have wrote papers, been peer-reviewed papers, and claimed to have been a teacher of logic in university at the time. I don't think he does at the minute. Right, so this is him. And I quoted I said, is there any proof in favor of the globe model? In fact, I think the statement would have been, there is no proof in favor of the globe model, or there can be no argument made to derive a proof from in favor of the globe model. And he's put loads. Here's one. So this is the proofless globe logician trying to do a proofless globe argument. Obviously, he has no proof. So
convey proof.
Yeah, he's trying to convey proof where he knows there is no proof. So obviously, there's going to be a fallacy within this coming up here. It's just our job to spot it. So that's what we play. We play the game of spot the fallacy within the proofless globe logician's statement. And he says, premise 1, see if you can spot it. It'll probably come quite quickly. If celestial navigation works, then the Earth is a globe. That's premise 1. Yeah, you want to stop me already? You've spotted it, have you?
You said, let's see if you can see it. I mean,
This is non sequitur, and by the way, you can invert that. If the Earth is a globe, then celestial navigation works.
Yeah.
It means that if you can exchange between antecedent and consequent, it means that you are already in circular reasoning. So it is completely meaningless.
Oh, go ahead, paper, finish up. Sorry.
Yeah, I finished. Yes. So I said that's why it is non sequitur and circular reasoning, because you can exchange.
Absolutely. So since we are shouting out Mike Jones, who prompted this entire show today, thank you, Mike. Let me give you a different premise. So here's a different premise that is comparable to Betty's premise there. If a bear shits in the woods, then the Earth is not a globe.
Nice. Yeah.
Absolutely equivalent premise.
Yeah, absolutely. Non sequitur. One just doesn't follow the other. The antecedent consequent relationship isn't there. the consequent of a bear shitting in the woods is not the Earth not being a globe. I mean, there's no relationship there. We have this saying. I think there's a dude that even has t-shirts still with it on. I hope it is. If not, when we're going to be bringing it back again. It states, Emma says, mind your P's and Q's. Meaning the antecedent consequent relationship of the P and the Q within a logical statement. They have to follow. You have to mind them. You have to put a thought process in to make sure that the consequent follows the antecedent. There has to be the relationship there. Otherwise, it just doesn't work as a logical statement. And the fallacy is quite obviously seen within this. There's your fallacy within the first premise. Beddy's already exposed himself as a not logician. There's no way you can come around that and state that there is a relationship like that. The best that Beddy could hope for now is to say, oh, well, I was practicing sophistry, hoping that you guys weren't clever enough to spot the fallacy within the statement. But Beddy, it's glaringly obvious that you are not a logician. You're not even attempting to do it. You're so obviously a misologist. It doesn't seem enough, that. But I mean, I'm guessing it's so obvious that he is. He cannot see logical reasoning, even to the point that he can't see the antecedent consequent relationship of a logical statement. It doesn't follow. It's a non sequitur. Whereas
Yes.
the P and the Q should definitely follow.
Yes, in this conditional, in this celestial navigation, should be something that implies necessity. But there is nothing there. It should, in this celestial navigation, should be something that excludes anything but globe. But there is nothing in a celestial navigation that excludes other possibilities. A flat earther would say that if celestial navigation works, then the earth is flat. And this is the same. By the way, celestial navigation is based on some, let's say, geometrical principles, which are not connected with any model.
Oh,
So,
don't forget the earlier statements, right? Betty was telling us that celestial navigation is to find out where you are. Right? The
so,
point that you are ends up telling you that it's a globe, according to the proofless globe logician.
so it means
Ridiculous.
that the place where I live tells me that I am living on the globe.
Mm-hmm.
My home, for example.
He's now saying it's a modus ponens, so therefore it's valid. It's not valid, Betty. You've got a non sequitur within your first premise. The antecedent consequent relationship of the P and the Q does not follow, Betty. Quite obviously so.
Yes, that's why I can exchange that, because both will be nonsensical. If I change conditional with consequent, it would state that way. If the Earth is a globe, then celestial navigation works. So I inverted antecedent with consequent, and it shows that this is not consequent, because if I can exchange consequent with antecedent, it means that antecedent is not as it appears to be, because you cannot exchange antecedent with consequent.
Yeah, you can't change the cause and the effect.
Yes,
At will.
Precisely.
Yeah, to put it in terms that other people might understand, right? This.
So if I can do that, and I can, it means that this relationship is not real in this statement. There is no cause and effect relationship in this statement, because I can exchange that, and it works as bad as Baby's original statement.
Yeah,
So
I think
it is
Betty
no
at the minute is going into the form of the logic, right? He's completely misrepresenting the existential part of the logical process. The reality
material
part bit, Betty.
material part. So I would say if celestial navigation works, then I will live 100 years. Celestial navigation works, therefore I will live 100 years. So for Baby, it is solid. So I proved to Baby that I will live 100 years. For him, it is valid argument, and I don't know, maybe true argument. So I think that I convinced him that I will live 100 years. For me, that would be bullshit, but for Baby, it is okay. I don't understand what he's saying. Logicians will tell you that there is not therefore. I don't understand what he's
Don't know what you're talking about, Betty. We know the if then is the P and the Q, the antecedent consequent. They have to be, it has to be a consequent of the antecedent. You can't just willy-nilly replace them. The relationship has to follow, Betty. Otherwise, it's not an antecedent. There's no relationship between the two. That's not logic. There's no reasoning process that goes on if there's no antecedent consequent relationship.
Yes, and we are talking about premise one, just it, only premise one.
Yeah, that's as far as we got.
Yes, celestial navigation works. This is your antecedent. Then, this is consequent. The Earth is a globe. And working, what was first? Globe or Earth or navigation? I would say that Earth was first, then navigation. So navigation cannot be antecedent for Earth. Simple.
Eddie, look up non sequitur. Betty, I'd say that would be your best bet. Because, I mean, this isn't something that you have to look up, Betty. This is something that's available to everybody within the understanding, the reasoning process. So if you could explain your reasoning process of how you derive from if celestial navigation works, then the consequent of that being 'tis globe. How does that work? How do you derive one from the other? Wally.
The same, this
They're
Dubo
not. They're
and
not.
Sydney.
It's the ECV, guys.
Yeah.
It's the ECV.
This is
The
Stroman.
ECV has kicked in. It's kicked in.
Classic, he's building classical Stroman, but
Yep.
he's not changing the same Stroman.
Okay, so we've spotted the fallacy within Betty's logic, right? Because this is, don't forget, this is one of Betty's, the proofless globe logician, giving us a proof in favour of the globe model. Betty, are you going to say now that this is a proof for the globe? That you yourself has come up with the first globe proof within logic that can be up for discussion. It's an argument that anybody can have, and we can have a discussion around this. We've said, oh, there's a non sequitur in there, Betty, and it looks like it's a circular reasoning logic statement that's derived from a conclusion that you want to have and backtracked to put a non sequitur within the first premise so you can derive your conclusion that's already the conclusion that you want to have. So obvious that that's how globe logic works. So you're exposing it for us, but everybody else can have this. It's valid, but
It's
possibly
valid, but
not.
not sound.
Possibly.
No. He is incorrect, but not sound. What does it mean? So not true. It is not right, because in conditional you can have impossible condition, and still you can have true consequent. For example, I read it in St. Thomas Aquinas, but I think it is Aristotelian example. This is the standard, let's say, standard logical example. If human was a donkey, then he would be mindless. So, of course, man is not a donkey, so this is impossible condition. But if we assume that this is possible, the consequent would be true. And this is not non sequitur argument. This example. This is a valid example of impossible condition where the consequent is true, but we have to assume that human is a donkey, which is impossible. So it makes condition impossible, but not consequent. But he is making mistake because he's not constructing a proper condition and consequent relationship. That's the point. Where he is mistaken. So
let's do this because Mike Jones is now taking part in the chat in the YouTube chat, and I agree with Mike. Let's go through. Never mind Betty's for a moment. Let's go through Mike's. So here's Mike's. Okay, this is Mike's valid argument. If a bear shits in the woods, premise number 1. If a bear shits in the woods, then the Earth is not a globe. Premise 2. A bear shit in the woods. Conclusion, therefore, the Earth is not a globe. Which one of these is true? Own words here. If you disagree with the conclusion, then you must disagree with one of the premises. Okay. So Mike's argument is valid then. Yeah. Must be.
yes,
well, he does say, right? I mean, take it back to this is Betty's proof, right? It's got to be a proof.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a non sequitur proof from the proofless globe logician.
It was the whole point of of how the comments were generated. Yes.
Yeah, I've said, is there any proof in favour of the globe model? And Betty says, loads. Here is one. So this is a claimed proof for the globe model from the proofless globe logician. Now, he says, premise 1, if celestial navigation works, then the Earth is a globe. Premise 2, celestial navigation works. Conclusion, therefore, the Earth is a globe. He does use little e, which, as far as I know, is not the almighty big one, the big E. It's just Earth. So he's literally stating that Earth, dirt, it is a globe by this proof. He says the argument is valid, i.e. the premises cannot be true, but the conclusion false. If you disagree with the conclusion, then you must disagree with one of the premises. Well, no, we just disagreed with one of the premises. Your logical reasoning, your logical statement is invalid because you have a non sequitur within your first premise.
Yes, because celestial navigation works. Yes, that's true. But in first premise, the cause of celestial navigation working is the Earth being globe, and this is non sequitur because this is quite opposite. Should be, and it makes not only non sequitur because it is non sequitur, but it is, in addition, it is affirming the consequent fallacy. So it's still so if he is asking if it is valid, no, it is not valid. It is untrue, of course, but there are two fallacies here: non sequitur and affirming the consequent. So sorry, this is not valid argument. So you are maybe mistaken.
He says, which premise is false? Question mark. I think we've already answered that one. And then he says, his prediction, he's got his crystal ball out, making his predictions. He says, I predict that Bev will not answer my question, but make some irrelevant comment or claim that I am model afflicted or some other such nonsense. No, we've clearly stated, you, Betty, the proofless globe logician, I think I've answered your question. I think once again your crystal ball predictions are wrong as well. Like, not only can you not formulate a logical statement and proving that you are not a logician at all. That's why you can continue to be the proofless globe logician. Not an actual logician, obviously, but the proofless globe logician that's give us a proof in favor of the globe model. Literally, you wrote that, Betty. You know, you wrote your wise words on a YouTube comment proving that you are the proofless globe logician. You're ridiculous. And this goes to prove how much this hatred of actual logic goes. That he hates it that much that he's willing to show everybody how he wants to get around a simple logical statement.
Yes, so it is formally invalid inferring here. So first thing is to point out that first globe or earth, then navigation. You cannot have in other direction because you are violating cause and effect relationship. So this is basic formal fallacy. You and baby cannot go around that. It is blatant fallacy, formal. I don't care if it is true or not true. Formal fallacy.
Yep. Yeah,
so
it just
even
proves.
within his standards, because he don't care if it is true or not, it should be only valid. So I say it is invalid, formally invalid.
I would as well. He's not checked his P's and Q's. He's not minded his P's and Q's. He should listen to Emma. He's obviously missed out on the early stuff that we did. Fascination discussion. I don't know. Oh.
Fascinating.
Fascinating.
You're correct.
Is it?
Good. Maybe he will learn something, and we will learn something.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Trivium. I think Betty said he wanted to come and give us some. Betty premise one is formally invalid, is formulated invalidly. Yeah, you can't have an invalidly formulated premise of your antecedent consequent and just ignore it to say that you've got a valid argument. That's ridiculous, Betty. This sophistry, Betty, it's not going to work. Obviously, when it becomes so obvious that the non sequitur, it just doesn't follow, that's what non sequitur means. It just doesn't follow. One, the antecedent is the one that comes first, then has to have the consequent. There's something that is a consequent of it. There has to be a link between the two. And there is no link between these two statements. Nobody.
This is not premise because normally in syllogism you have three simple sentences. So this premise, in fact, that's why it is called modus ponens or tollens, because it is just conditional statement, and you are affirming condition. If condition is true, it means that the consequent is true. And if the condition is not true, then consequent is not true. But he called it premise one. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but still.
It should be formulated. If celestial navigation works, brackets, P.
No, syllogism. No. Modus ponens is created by P and Q, and you are checking, for example, P.
Yeah.
Like an experiment. But in syllogism, you have one statement first, just simple, that celestial navigation works, premise one. Second, I don't know, mariners use celestial navigation. This would be premise two. And conclusion, therefore, we live on the globe. This is, of course, nonsensical, but this is how syllogism should be built. And modus tollens or ponens, they are not full syllogisms. We don't have a middle term. We are checking one of the condition in sentence. This is our middle term. We are creating something instead of middle term. There is no real middle term in this conditional statement. That's why I would say that this is in another way it is invalid, because it is not like how we create syllogisms. So he is creating syllogism, premise one, premise two, and conclusion. Yes, that would be syllogism. But in P and Q situation, it is not full syllogism.
Yeah, Betty's pointing out that he's the one that's been confused, right? He should have wrote it, if celestial navigation works, brackets P, then the Earth is a globe, brackets Q, antecedent consequent P and Q. But he's wrote that into premise one, as though it's a syllogism. But it's not, it's a modus ponens. He's saying that now. It's like he's wrote it down as though he's the confused one. So I think he wants to let you know that he got confused when he was writing out a modus ponens, and seemed to have wrote down premise one in brackets and premise two in brackets.
Yes, and this is not syllogism, because in that case, if it is syllogism,
Oh, is he gone, or is that me?
Directly formulated, because it has to be subject and object, and it has to be linked between or subject, let's say subject and predication. So we have to link subject or predication from first sentence through middle term to conclusion. And we don't have this situation here. So we cannot say that this is syllogism, but only P and Q situation. But even taken this premise one as P and Q, this is invalid statement. This is invalid condition. Invalid conditional statement, because the Earth is antecedent and navigation should be consequent. So sorry, it is still invalid. Even if we give him that this is modus ponens, it is still invalid, because his P and Q are invalidly formulated still.
Yeah, Betty's talking from the chat, and Wally's sort of telling him about talking to sane people. Well, Wally's too shy to actually talk to anybody, and Betty's text chat trolling rather than actually coming and discussing this.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah,
So,
there's Betty. It's quite simple. You have a non sequitur in your antecedent consequent relationship. It does not follow one from the other. It just doesn't make any sense. And that's why we know that you are not a logician. You are a sophist that's trying to push something that is so obviously not true. It's not logical, Betty, that you are trying to push a non sequitur in a modus ponens statement to derive a proof within a logical statement. And when you know yourself that there is no proof for the globe, because you can't formulate an argument. This isn't a formulated argument because you have a non sequitur in your antecedent consequent relationship. Betty, I don't need to look anything up. I know that there is a non sequitur in your antecedent consequent relationship. It's not worth going on about anymore. You can try and convince your friends, but I would give them an instruction video on it. Your other friends, the ones that you have to help convince. You're the one here that says you have a proof, a logical proof that would be able to be looked up by anybody. Now, did I hear that your son got this as a entrance question? Is that this one?
Yeah, I couldn't understand if it was the one that he posited or the one that Mike posited.
The one about a bear not being a bear.
Or shitting in the woods. I'm not sure which.
My son was given that argument for his Oxford interview and got in. This argument
says more about Oxford, I think.
This argument, I mean, I would love to see that.
If
Betty.
so, it means that this Oxford logic seems sad.
Yeah.
If it is true, very sad.
But it makes sense given the state of the world, right?
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. 100%.
Logic.
Yeah, it's all over the place. That type of misology, because that's what it really is all over the place. So, not surprising.
They're the same form of syllogism, right? It changes a bit.
Yeah, it's all about the form. So sentence structure is all that matters, basically, is another way to think about it.
Yeah, you just put
sentence structure.
Yeah, just
but
put different words there.
Yeah, words mean things, though. That's what we believe here. Words mean things. So go on with the form and the sentence structure all you like.
Yeah.
Yes, for baby, any P is good, and any consequent or Q is good. Anything. Just anything. You can put in P anything and in Q anything, and for baby it is all right.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's within the structure and you call it modus ponens, it doesn't really matter what you put there in your antecedent consequent relationship.
Yes,
which is what I would argue that the ancient Greeks had exactly this problem with the sophists. I believe personally that this is exactly what the ancient sophists were trying to do. Exactly what Bebe's trying to do now.
Yeah.
I would say
fine. Good.
I would disagree, Kevin. You think you are extrapolating. I think that ancient sophists were not so stupid.
Oh, you don't think they were as that?
Yes.
That they would try this kind of thing.
Well,
Yes,
do you think he's
possible, I
stupid,
guess.
right? Or do you think that he thinks we are that stupid? Or do you think that he thinks the people around him on the globe side are that stupid that they're going to be able to believe this? Because I'd say we're not stupid enough. We've spotted the fallacy, but I bet he's hoping that he can get away with it on his side.
I think that this is weakness of every sophist, that he thinks that he's smarter than his opponent, and he only thinks that the opponent is as smart as he thinks that he is smart, but no more, and no more than him. So this is weakness of sophists. They always assume that the opponent is more stupid or less smarter than him. This is let's say tactical error.
Definitely.
Especially from a not very bright sophist, right? Because they expose themselves as the weakness of their arguments, the fallacies that they want to try and employ, expose how smart they actually are themselves. For Betty to imagine that he can still get away with this like he is. He's put in brackets, what you being... No, he's saying now you are that stupid, Bev. So he's being rude, so he's going to have to go. His hatred of us is being exposed.
The misology.
In his ad homs, yeah.
Yeah.
He's having to resort to ad homs, and then he's showing to himself that he best get out of here because it'll only get worse.
Yep.
Yes, and she couldn't address this this fallacy that he violated cause and effect relationship. He never addressed that in this conversation on the chat. So I think that he is aware that we spotted this fallacy, and he cannot reboot that. So I think that he has to admit that he committed this fallacy, but he would not admit in the chat.
Never. Mike's here. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, why doesn't Betty send his son over then? I mean, if his son is the smart one in the family, why doesn't he send his son here?
To do logic. I mean, he must have been doing logic if he was given a syllogism as an entrance exam, right?
Exactly. And clearly, if Betty is pumping the son up as the Oxford student, then he must be smarter than Betty, because Betty's not pumping himself up as the Oxford guy.
Yeah.
So send your son over. We might have a great chat with him. He might be willing to accept the Logos.
Well, just come over and see the argument that we've developed and the proofs to go along with it. Ask him about the horizontals, but wonder whether we could get that on the Oxford committee, because it should easily be able to be rebutted or something, right? An actual argument. He's gone now anyway. He had to resort to ad homs. Started being rude, so he's gone. He can't hack it. It's a shame, really. I would have loved to have seen Betty come in and defend this proof. I mean, it's only Betty, right? He's only the only proofless globe logician that they have. Nobody else from the globe can ever dream of using logic, right? They're all misologists. They all have an utter hatred of logic, reasoning, discussion about it. But Betty, he's been employed to be this character. Obvious fake logician. But still, the best proofless globe logician that the globe side has. Coming up with ridiculous non sequitur proofs of the globe model. Circular reasoning, non sequitur. Globe proofs. That's brilliant. And nobody's going to be using any of this. And there's a lot of people who are misologists. They hate this logical process. They hate the discussion that goes around this. And they hate the reasoning process that goes on. for anybody to look at that and realize that if you say if celestial navigation works, then the Earth is a globe. I mean, how does that work? How about if my GPS system works, then I will get to the location that I want to. That would seem like a consequent, right? If it works, then I get to my destination. Nothing about a globe, you notice, in that, where with a true antecedent consequent relationship, you can't squeeze a globe into a premise or into a consequent, because there is no consequent that can end up with then the Earth is a globe. Try it. I mean, everybody should be free to try this. Try to formulate a logical, either modus ponens or modus tollens, however you want to do it. Try and formulate one in favor of the globe.
This whole thing is just, it's fundamentally exactly what we've been talking about with it. It couldn't have been any better.
Couldn't, yeah.
This example in this conversation with Betty. And notice that he did say, when I mentioned about the sentence structure and the form, and that's what matters, he said, yeah, Kevin is right. Propositional structure is key. No, Betty, I know you left, but if you do listen to this later, the logic is the key. The structure is there to make the logic make sense. Without the logic making sense, the structure is meaningless. It's completely meaningless. It's like having a sentence structure that is correct, but the words actually mean nothing. There's no logos there. The logos is what's important. So we've been trying to say.
Yeah, the words, the logic, the structure of it, the way that the antecedent consequent, it follows. Just the words may seem big, but one has to follow the other, as in the scientific method. It's exactly the same. It's all logic, and you have to get your structure together. As with the scientific method, if I do this, then this happens. You can't put something in the then this happens, just a random thing.
Why? Yeah. Why would I need an answer to this? Why, if anybody has an answer, why would anyone, especially Oxford, want to utilize a bullshit argument? Let's put it in Betty's words, an unsound one, as somehow good just because the form is good. How does that work? How does that get you to be a logician? How does that get you to create sound logic from that? Why not use a real one? Why not use one that actually is sound logic with the correct form and structure? Why not that? Why? I don't know. Why don't you guys try that before I give my opinion on it?
Well,
any ideas?
It's just
why
pure
go with
sophistry
something
on Betty's part, right? Obviously, that didn't happen. Maybe they did use a logical argument, right? And Betty's just changed the words together. There's no way for an entrance exam or an entrance question to a university, Oxford, one of the highest places you can go to in the country, would use a non sequitur, circular reasoning fallacy as an example of an entrance question, unless that was the idea. Spot the fallacies within it. See how many fallacies you can spot.
If that, well,
I'll
if that
give
was,
you.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, I mean, I have so little time, but I'll give you my answer. My answer is because the world has embraced relativism
Yes.
and needs relativism and thrives on relativism, and so therefore you have to have this nonsense about, oh, what's valid and what's sound, and oh, well, that's valid. I mean, a bear not being a bear, and therefore a bear is a bear, bear not being a bear means a bear is a bear, is valid. And that just, what it does is it screws with young minds. And that's what we need to do. We need to screw with young minds because we live in a really, really messed up world where we have to give them relativism, because if we give them truth, they will rebel,
Yes.
as they should rebel.
Yep. That is my take as well. And perhaps Bev is right. Perhaps, and Gadget too, who's saying it on in the YouTube chat, that there's no way that Oxford did that. Perhaps that's true. Perhaps it was just a lie, or it was something else, or it was a half truth or whatever. But I'm with Mike. If it is true, if that actually happened, and certainly from Betty's perspective, right? This is an important thing. He said so himself. He said, I'm right, that this is, that structure is key. That's the point. Mike's point is it exactly. Why would you take that stance? Because it's the relativism that you're after. It's the anti-logos that you're after. It's the misology that you're after. It's the sophistry that you're after. That's why you would do that. Because it doesn't make any sense any other way, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't allow for the possibility. Let's take it that Betty is talking the truth, and Oxford Union want to try and push his globe logical statement, right? It makes sense that they want to just completely rip apart logic, paraconsistent logic.
Yep.
Yes, but maybe you didn't realize, both Beth and Kevin, that you used a condition. If it is true that Oxford, etc., then there is some consequence.
Yes.
So if it is impossible, it is still, the consequence is still true, because we have to assume speculatively that this is true, and then consequent is true. So the same would be in modus tollens and modus ponens. So or in my example with this human being donkey, but consequent is true. But to have true consequent, you have to assume that this impossible condition is true, only for the sake of argument. You can't do that in speculative thinking, and this is valid. But still, you have to assume the truth in your mind for a while, that this is true, and you can infer true consequent from that, even from impossible condition.
From a non sequitur?
No. I didn't say that.
I'm just saying this particular one that Betty's got, right?
No. This is non sequitur. But if you are talking about Oxford, that if Oxford, etc., then we have consequences of that. If this condition is not true, that Oxford, etc., it invalidates consequent. Therefore, it means that this pushing relativism is not true, for example, in that example. But if it is true, the consequent, what Mike Jones said, that would be true. but this relationship between antecedent and consequent is correct, but in Bebe's example is not correct, because in our example, Oxford is antecedent, real antecedent. And the consequence of that, it is real would be real consequent. But in Bebe's example, he messed up cause and effect. So that's why it is invalid. That's why it is non sequitur, because effect has to follow from cause. Cause cannot follow from effect. That's his basic error here.
Yeah, so Beddy, in his rewriting of like say a structured logical argument that his son was given at Oxford, he's just rewrote that and said, well, the form of it is the same, therefore it's a valid argument, not noticing that he's inbuilt a non sequitur.
Yes, but because you cannot have the words should have meaning, even in his modern logic, because if we have antecedent, anti means ante, before, and consequent, it is sequitur, it means just following. Con with, following with the cause, or along with the cause.
Yeah.
But we have before and after, and he exchanged it. After he said that after is before and before is after. So this is non sequitur.
It's handy that form that you use in there with the swapping the antecedent consequent around.
Yes, and this is formal fallacy. Formal fallacy. Because he insists that, okay, it can be untrue, but still it is valid because it is formally okay. No, it is not formally okay. So even within his modern logic standard, it is invalid.
It's all a game.
Yeah.
With these people, you know, it's if no is yes, then no is no. No is yes, therefore no is no.
Yeah.
Well, it's a valid argument. It's like, where does that get us, dude? Why are we even having this discussion?
Where we are today. It's what we talked about, right? Where seemingly mankind is today, where our, especially Western societies, where they are today. So it's why where we are today. I'm convinced.
And it's what we were talking about earlier, right? It's about having this understanding that I am going to engage with you honestly.
Yes.
As an honest human being, we're going to have a discussion because we both have logos. And logos is not just reason. Logos is something, as we said, beyond reason. It is something that NORAD or Kevlar or whatever you want to call him felt. He said, I just had a sensation in me. That is logos. And if no is yes, yes is no, is not that feeling.
No, it's the pure opposite of it, right? Because all that does is cause confusion.
Yeah.
Purposely, in my opinion, right? That is the sophistry.
And confusion definitely isn't logos, right?
Exactly.
You know when logos is
100%
confusion.
not.
You know when that is as well, because that's that feeling that something's not right. You have to have the base of logic to understand what it is that is not right. Thus showing the need for the logos and Beddy's utter contempt for it, for him wanting to be able to push this I'm going to call it. It's bullshit, Betty.
And this in
You
this
have to-
example of a bear, it is contradiction in terms, so it cannot be valid. So because bear cannot be bear and not bear. So
Yep.
it is contradiction in terms.
OSE.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you have to know what's right in order to determine something to be wrong, I would imagine.
Yes, correct. Yes. So to deny something, you have first you have to have something positive first. For if you say that something is not white, you have to know what white is and where white is. So if you are if you say that this car is not white, it means that you can have idea of white car at least to deny it. So you have to start from positive, even if you are denying, and that's why sophists cannot really win, so to speak, with their arguments, because they have to start from truth to deny it. They have to say some true statement and then to deny it or contradict it.
So if you have misologia, and shout out Mike for bringing that word to our attention, misologia, the hatred of logic. If you have that, I mean, you're in a bad way to begin with. Like you're
It's worse than that.
You're lost. Yeah.
They have to know logic to have hatred of it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they can't.
They don't even have point A. Good point. Yeah, exactly.
Absolute
How can you
madness
hate
is the only way to
something
be.
you don't know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier as well, didn't we, Bev? That it is an active denial. It's an active denial of it. And again, those of us that have this kind of spiritual linkage to Logos and believe that Logos is God, it's the denial of God. It's the hatred and denial of God. Simple as that. And again, in my opinion, right? You don't have to hold that view yourself. You could take a more shallow view of it, but that's the view that I take of it. I think Mike has the same view. Bev and I had this discussion and agreed. It's deeper because, to Bev's point, you have to know logic to warp it in that manner, and to know logic and willfully warp it the way Betty has. Just sad.
I was just gonna say that, bro, because I came in late to the conversation. Sorry, it snowed here, and today was a hell of a day. But anyways, absolutely. Like, how can you deny something when you don't know what it is? Like, that's the epitome of like unlogic. Like, for real.
That's the basis of the model, though, right? Remember non-Euclidean geometry? Not knowing Euclidean geometry leads to stolen concept fallacies. That's where not knowing the thing that you're saying, not that, leads to. Really poor stolen concept, self-refuting statements.
By the way,
that's fascinating. I was thinking of that word today, and I was saying, look at that. They even have a word for that. Like, I was going, it's amazing. Yeah.
They are denying both non-Euclidean geometry because they don't know this non-Euclidean geometry, and they don't know Euclidean geometry. So they don't know anything.
Yeah, so exactly. So they don't know the non-Euclidean because they don't know the Euclidean. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the state of our argumentation, supposed argumentation within this arena. That's what people like Nathan Oakley is arguing for, being the debater, the best debater. He's telling other people to not do debates when the only people that you have been debating are people who are absolutely insane, because they don't even know where they're formulating arguments. They can't form arguments. They can't know logic. Because if they were to know logic, then their model crumbles, because it's built on contradictions through and through. That's why I think half of this time where we're discussing with people and trying to get it across to people, that there's just too many contradictions. They're everywhere. And when you break it down to look at the simplicity of the arguments, they fail. Big time, every one of them. And unfortunately / fortunately, we've got Betty. Because of the discussions we've had, Team Globe has had to make a character that is Betty. Betty came to us again. Thank you, Mike, because of a comment that Mike made on, I think, was it a Brian's Logic video? I think it was something like that. Mike was doing his usual seed sowing comments that he does, and he brought Betty in. So they literally made Betty as a character, logical, Globe logic, not realizing that the one thing the Globe model cannot have is logic. They literally have to make a new logic, and you can't do that. It's something, you can't make a new element. I was thinking about this earlier, right? To go back to the spirituality side of this. If you try and do advanced simplicity on anything, you break it down and get simpler and simpler and simpler. Is it the genus, Kevin? I can't remember when we went through that. But you break it down.
You go from genus to species all the way down to the specific individual thing. But at the very top, it becomes whatever it is becomes axiomatic, right? It just is. It's existential. And Bev's, you gonna tell what you said? What thought it was, Bev?
Yeah, I think every time you go back, it's the logos, right? It is this thing that causes the reasoning process. That's what everything will derive back to, because there has to be that to start the process. It's undefinable, but it is the logos. It's the logic. It's the reasoning process that separates man from beast.
Yep. And for those of you that are so biblically inclined, let's say, it's the I am. It's the I am. It's existential.
It just is.
To deny that. Yeah, it just is. To deny that. To deny that logic, to hate that logic is, as I said before, it's sad, truly sad. I wouldn't want to be those people for anything.
No, I think it's easier for them to leave this arena and stop talking to us, right, than to come and have the discussion. They have the hatred of the discussion, but to come in here, it's understandable why they hate it and why they hate us. They'll have any reason to not come in and discuss this, because the discussion will always end badly, because they do. They hate it. They end up ad hominem. They end up calling people names for some reason, because they just cannot have the discussion. And since we're here for discussion, then we have to ask anybody, if you want to come in for a discussion, then, we're here. You will not get people trying to deceive you in this Discord server. We won't have, there will never be liars tolerated around here. And some of the people in this Discord server can sniff out bullshit. in people. Some of us are a little bit harsh at times with
I was
new people.
literally trained by ex-CIA to spot liars. We paid for the CIA to come to our office to train us, to teach us to spot liars. I'm great at it.
Yeah, as am I. While it wasn't CIA, it was a psychoanalyst in with neurolinguistic programming. So I too have the tools to figure out whether someone's lying or not. And it doesn't have to be physical. It can definitely be verbal. You can tell.
Well, I wasn't
Also, it
trained.
used to be
I guess it was built in for me from the factory.
I also used to be a father of small children, and I'm really good at spotting when small children lie to you.
Yes, but with children it is easy because they think that they are very smart and you don't know their trick. So it is.
I didn't eat the cookies. I didn't eat those cookies.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't eat these cookies. Yum. Yes. Yes, but the adult people should be smarter, but they are seemingly sometimes they are not. For example,
I
Brenda.
didn't say pseudo. Oh, sorry.
For example, Brenda, blatant lie. Brenda said once upon a time that in Plato's one of dialogues, I can't remember, Timaeus, that the science or knowledge is subset of belief. And I found that there is quite opposite. He said, I can't remember who exactly, this one who is talking all the time in this dialogue, can't remember his name, but he said that belief is subset, that belief is something smaller than knowledge. It means that belief is subset of knowledge. And Brenda said that this is otherwise. So Brenda just lied blatantly. But many lies.
Yeah, I think I have to go the same, right? When I came into this, I honestly came in with questions, thinking that people at least talking, because I come from Twitter and I knew that within text, right, these could be bots. They lie or they misrepresent and you can never get an answer. But I was hoping that whenever you come to talk to people, you will get honesty, right? You get a decent conversation. But I wasn't prepared for the amount of lies that had to be found, right? You have to find the liars, which is a good exercise to be able to root out lies, because in doing that you learn more, because you learn where the lie happens and how to point that out. But you do learn that there are, within this arena, it seems like there's a lot of liars around. Now that goes to the is it misanthropy at the beginning, right? If misanthropy. Sorry, Emma. If you go with that, like that everybody you start talking to is proven to be a liar, then the danger is that you think that everybody is a liar. Luckily enough, I'm in a Discord server where I know people aren't lying, because the honesty is, you can see it, you can hear it, right? There's no reason for people to be not honest in this Discord server. So luckily, I do know that there are good people. So I don't end up thinking that everybody is bad. but I can see why a lot of people end up getting angry at anybody that, because it's the moment you bring up any one of these topics and you trigger one of these people into whatever defense mechanism they have with their ECV, once that's triggered, you can then think that everybody is like Zanuck, everybody is like Brenda, everybody is like Rumpus. But they're not. They're a minority group of people. And we have to keep a mind on that, right? There are liars, but they're not that many. I don't think. This is a hard topic to talk to people about when you get down into the logos, right? Because it can be interpreted in many different ways. And just like when you talk about level being horizontal and people misrepresenting that to mean flat earth, then once you start talking about logos and this, then people will, and I know they will, these guys that are doing that, they will interpret us meaning that to be more, let's say. But I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm happy. Jeff, look at Jeff Gashead sent his granddaughter in. He's had that much faith in us. Well done. Thanks, Jeff. Shows how happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, we got the rolls. Yeah, tell her to just come in. It doesn't matter, Jeff. We don't ask people to speak until they're comfortable, so don't worry about it. Just come in and sit, be quiet. We are going to be shutting this off soon, and going to go to level up into the the later episodes or whatever. We just go into a proper conversation. The recording will be turned off. So there will be no after show recordings going on, but the stuff that we can't say in these live shows will be discussed when we're not live, when we're not being recorded, because there's some stuff that we can't say on these streams because we don't want to give the things away. We're not giving them away, but putting some of the information in the hands of sophists means that that information will be used by the sophists. And it's not good to do that. So we save those conversations for not live time.
Yeah, and I will also add that, sometimes we have folks in the Discord that are more comfortable just talking within the Discord and knowing that they're not going out to YouTube for potentially, the world to listen to. So, and then that can be also understandable, right? So, but that's why I think and I think Bev, you discussed, doing more of this kind of thing, that we're going to have discussions after the show. So you might see, it's up to Bev, of course, they're his shows, but you might see maybe a little bit less time on YouTube and more introducing a topic, discussing it for a while, and then coming off and having the discussion in the Discord.
Yeah, definitely more of that. The idea of what we want to do is we want to talk to people, but it's because we're live right now. We know there's a lot of people that don't want to talk live. I can understand that. I mean, really, this is the last place I would like to bring people, because I know how mind numbing it can be trying to understand something so illogical. So obviously, I want more conversations, and the one-to-one, the dialectic obviously works better when we're not live. And there's no pressure on anybody then. It's just a conversation. doesn't need to get heated or anything for any reason. We're not doing anything for the show. We're just doing it for the communication purposes, and that's what we originally wanted to do. I mean, that's all we were doing, was inviting conversation. We did record the old ones because it was the crazy that we had to point out, but now that crazy's disappeared. Thank God.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And now we're left with a group of people and some amazing conversations. Some of the stuff we do go over. I think I gave Kev a bit of an insight into the pressure stuff that we have. We've got J-Ro and the music, which we're going to get into. Buster's obviously doing what Buster does. We've got the Trivium and the logic, and some of the stuff that we talk about, it obviously goes a lot deeper, and it's a lot easier to communicate this in a one-to-one than over the YouTube arena. So please come into Discord and just if you've got any questions about anything that we're going over, you'd like to be caught up. I mean, one of the things that happens in the Discord is that I get to talk to nearly everybody all the time, and I have to pass things across. But when people have been away for a couple of days, they miss so much, and they need to be caught up with some of the stuff, and then it gets passed by. And I'm going to have to try and give ourselves reminders in the live shows of the stuff that everybody else is missing out on, and then they can listen to them and go back and ask the questions about it. Hopefully, fantastic stuff in the Discord. So please, that's where we're going to be going to in a moment after Buster. Well, we'll be going over, always are in the Discord.
Yeah, and while you get ready to close up, I just want to say, Mike, thank you again. This has been phenomenal. The entire discussion today was phenomenal. I didn't get a lot of work done, so I will blame you if anybody asks me. But thank you, brother. Appreciate it. It was awesome stuff.
The Logos works in mysterious ways.
Buster. Who will from Buster? He says he's going to actually record these songs again.
I can't wait.
Like, drum tracks. Also, all of that is actually going to go and do that. So Jesse's in. Okay. We're going to go into the next level of On the Level live, but not live. So if you want to come in, click the link on the Discord and underneath the video, and come on in. It's not a load of gamers in the Discord. We just use it. It's a good medium, really, for showing and exchanging information, conversations. Come on in. It's like a public bar where we just have a chat. Join us tomorrow. It will be geometry. This has been a fucking amazing Trivium day. Hopefully we can do more days like this.
It has been great.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Thanks. And join us tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Anybody else got any final words?
No.
Fuck you, YouTube.
Okie dokie. See you tomorrow.
violence of these madmen going insane. And now I see it clear. They're running and they're hiding because of fear. If I never communicate with logical, if I don't sing, if I don't speak out, if I never receive the logos of transcendental numbers and conceptual maths will take you on a journey down a Penrose path, and you'll never see it clear. The path that you're on will be ends in tears. If I don't sing and if I don't speak out, if I never communicate with logic or will, if I don't sing and if I don't speak out, if I never receive the logos of will. Cast away the shadows and step into light. We're taking down giants and opening sight. And now I see it clear. The path that you're on ends in fear. out if I never communicate with logical will. If I don't sing, if I don't speak,